Hey guys, here we are again. This is graphing activity number 2 because there are more translations that you can do to exponentials. All right, here we go. For number 1, we're going to use the same parent graph that we did in graphing activity number 1. So if you use your table of values on your calculator, you will see that these are the y values that you will get for this exponential function. And then here's a graph if you were to graph these points. All right, Miss Klein's graphs aren't very pretty. Number 2, use the table of values to graph the new function. Keep in mind, the negative sign on your calculator is different than your subtraction sign. So if you're having problems graphing this, make sure that you're using a negative sign in your grapher and not a subtraction sign. Okay, the table of values that you should get, that you should calculate after this exponential should be these. If you were to graph them, this is what your graph will look like. What happened from the parent graph to the new graph? If I were to overlay these on top of each other, so let's say Ms. Klein sketched the second graph onto the first one. What do we notice? What's it doing? In your heads right now, I'm sure you're saying it flips. You are correct. But the appropriate way to say flip is reflection. So let's take a look. If you're not a visual learner and graphs don't help you, which is fine, let's take a look at what happened to our table of values. These x values stayed the exact same, but what happened to my y values? Keep in mind that the negative sign also means opposite. So your y values that were originally positive up in quadrant 1 and 2 now became negative. They reflected over the x-axis, and your y values became opposite. So if you were to apply this theory to points, your x values would stay the same, but your y values would be opposites. And that describes a reflection over the x-axis. Let's take a look at this next function and compare it to the parent. So here's the new function. I wonder what's going to happen. We kind of set up this table to be backwards, but if you use your graphing calculator, this will be the new x values in your table. I wonder how could I compare these to my originals? So here's my originals with the parent function, and here's my new ones. Although they look very similar, notice what happened to my y values. So this graph, if you were to graph this, let's take a look at it. Let's graph the parent function on top of this new one. I wonder what happened. This is an example of a reflection over the y-axis, which means all of your x values are now opposite. And you can also tell by looking at the exponential function because you can see that the negative sign is being applied to the x, which means the x's become opposite. So if you were to apply this theory to a set of points, your x's would become opposite and your y values will stay the same. You just created a reflection over the top of the y-axis. So what you learned today was you can apply reflections to an exponential graph. You can read them, you can apply them, you can describe them. Great job. Your homework for today is going to be the 5.1 to 5.3 review. Number 1, don't do 5.1 to 5.3 review number 2. Thanks, guys, and have a good day.